Hi guys, and welcome to another Divi theme video. This is Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. We're going to start this little series off. We're going to build this little one-page site we've got here. Got a little slider there on the hero section. Got a little about us section, services section, team section, little project section, testimonial section with a little slider there, portfolio section, and finally a contact section with a contact form, some info, and a full width live Google map. Really easy to do. We're going to do this just with the Divi theme itself with the inbuilt features. There's no extra plugins or coding involved in this today. So let's get started. I'm going to create a new page and we'll start from scratch. I'm going to go up to the top to new and to page. Give our page a name. Let's call it new home. Call yours what you like. And obviously I want to use the Divi builder with this today. I'm going to build from scratch. I'm going to create a new section here by clicking on it, hitting the little blue button, because I'm going to use a full width section for our slider today. And I want to use a full width slider module down here. Full width modules, you get a few less modules, but they're built for full width. Great. Now before I actually do anything else, I'm going to get rid of this default section at the top. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to click on it. Again, blue tab for a section. I'm simply going to delete it like that. Okay, well let's go in and start making a couple of slides. I'm going to click on the field, dark tab for the module itself. Here's the two slides it starts out with right there. I'm going to delete the second one and we'll work on the first one here. Obviously, put your title in there, whatever it is you want to say. Now, if you want to have a button, simply type what you want your button to say down here. If you don't want a button, just simply delete that and leave it blank. As you can see, the button's disappeared. Well, as you can't see, the button's disappeared. Let's put that back in there. I'm going to have a button with mine. Obviously, down below, you want to have your content, whatever it is you want to say about your first site on this slide. And this is a regular text field, so you can bold, italicize, align, make headings if you want to, and add media. Let's put my little logo just above here, perhaps. So I'm going to scoot that down a couple. I'm going to add media. And I've got my little light colored logo somewhere on here. There it is. Now if you don't, you can simply drag and drop your logo into this media library here. So let's select that one. I'll pop it in there. Now it's a little bit big for me. If you want to make it smaller or bigger, you can actually just click on it, drag it to the size that you want it. That's going to work for me. Great. Well, let's move on down here. You can choose to add an image or a video. If you do, it'll appear on the left hand side, and I'll demonstrate that when we build our next slide there. Down below we've got the link. Now here we've got the button link, so put wherever you want to take your visitors with the button there. Choose whether you want to open it in the same window or another site. Always best practice if you're linking to your own site, keep it in the same window. If you're going off site to somebody else's, open it in a new tab so your site stays open. Now you can link the whole module, so if they click anywhere else, you can put a different link in here, or even the same link if you want. The same rules apply. Well, let's have a look at our background here. And I'm going to mix a couple of colors, I think. Let's use a blue color there. And let's add an image. And you can do it with a gradient too, if you want to mix these up. And you've also got options to add a background video, a background pattern, or a background mask. I'm going to use a color and an image. Again, just drag your images up here and load them. I'm going to use, I think that's the one I used before. Now to make this stand out a bit better, we've got a couple of options. I can blend it with that blue color, which I'm going to do here. Or when we move on to the design tab, you can choose to use an overlay. But I'm going to blend this. So I'm going to roll down to under the image here. At the bottom, we've got background image blend. And there's a lot of different options here. I'm going to use multiply when I do that. You'll see it's multiplying that blue color, and our writing stands out an awful lot better there. Well, let's move on. I'm going to move on to my design tab here. And here's what I was saying about an overlay. If I put it on here, you won't see much difference because of the color I've got there, but it should darken it down slightly. And you can choose your own colors. That's the default sort of darkening mode right there. That works for me. I'm going to take that off though, so that works fine without it for me. Navigation. Well, we've only got one, so it's not showing up at the moment, but you've got arrows either side and pagination dots down the bottom. And you can choose your colors here. Image wise, I'm not going to adjust my image. I'm quite happy with it where it is, and I'm not going to put any borders or anything on there. Or box shadow. I'm going to move on down. Here we've got our text. Title text, let's make that a little bit bigger. And you can go into your text, the simple text right here, and do everything at once if you wanted to change colors, light to dark, etc., and give it text shadow. Or you can go in down below and do them individually. So I want to do my title text. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger and perhaps have it semi-bold. And you can roll it up and down. Now, common to most Divi modules, if you roll over the dark writing, you'll see some little icons appear. If you want to check how it's going to look on tablet and mobile, roll over, you see a little mobile phone type icon. Click on it, and we can look at it on desktop, on tablet, and on mobile. And that's not too bad. I don't mind that breaking into two lines there, but if you wanted to, you could have separate sizes for each of these. I'm going to take mine back to the desktop. Okay, just to make it stand out a little bit more, I'm going to add a bit of text shadow behind it. Great. Let's roll down. You can do similar for the body text there. I'm going to leave mine just as it is on the default text. But I'm sure you may know this, but Divi has a crazy amount of fonts. It really does have a huge amount. Just click on one, roll over it, and it'll show you an example. I'm going to leave mine on the default, like I say. Okay, well, let's move down a little bit more. Here's our button, and you can custom style your button however you wish by turning the custom styles for button on. Choose the text size. I'm going to leave mine just as it is there. Button text color is fine. I'm actually going to give it a color background and perhaps take away that border. So we've got button background here. I've been using the sort of purples and blues on this site. I'll stick to that. So I'm going to make the background purple. I'm going to take that white border away by just taking the border down to 0 there. And also we can change color on hover. It's got a little icon when you hover over it. Let's change it to blue perhaps on hover. To do that, again, this is common to most Divi modules. Hover over the dark writing of the thing you want to affect, button background. If there's an arrow there, there is in our case, we can set a desktop state when your mouse is not on it, and a hover state when the mouse is on it. So for the hover state, I'm going to make that button blue. Great. Rolling down a bit more, I kind of like that button to be a pill-shaped button rather than a square one. So we can do that with border radius down below. And let's just give it, say, 30 pixels or something. That will give it nice rounded corners. Obviously, the higher amount you do it, the more rounded it'll be. Just put in the 30, it'll put the pics in there for you. Okay, let's roll down a bit more. You can choose a font if you want to. I'm going to leave mine just like it is. I don't want to have a button icon when we roll over it. So let's just switch this on and flip it back to off. That is now gone, which is great. Button alignment center, that works. And I will add a little bit of text shadow to that just to make it stand out slightly more on that button. If you want to push your button up or down, you can add margin top and bottom. So if I put 50 there, you can see it pushes that button down. I'm going to leave mine just as it is. If you wanted to make it taller or wider, you can do that with padding. Again, if I put, say, 30 pics, you'll see it adds 30 pics to the top. You can hit the chain and do the similar for the bottom if you want to. Same with the left and right if you want to make it bigger or smaller. I'm going to take mine away. I'm happy with the way it was there. And again, I'm just going to add a little box shadow on the bottom of it just to darken it out there. Let it stand off the page. Let's move down a little bit more now. We've got our sizing here. Well, we can actually set the width of the content here, which is just what I want to do. For me, that's rolling a bit wide. I want to pull it in a little bit. So let's use our little slider here. We'll drag it in till it looks about right for us. That's fine. I think also I'll take a little space away from my little logo there. To do that, we'll just go back into the content, to the text where we put that logo in. And I can actually just delete one of the spaces I've got there by hitting delete just after it. Yeah, that works for me. Great. Oh, back on our design tab, we can now go down to spacing, which is down below. And you can add padding, top, bottom, left and right, which will give things more space, top, bottom, left and right. But again, I'm pretty happy with the way that's working for me. Great, so I'm going to save that, and that's our first slide right there. Little green check mark to save it, and there it is. Now, if you want to set a particular height for the whole slider, go over to your design tab while you're in the main module, the full width slider settings here. Go over to design, sizing, roll down, and you can actually set a height. And again, just roll your little arrow or type in a value, make it the actual height that you want it. And again, if you want to, you can choose different heights for tablet and mobile by clicking on the little icon there. I'm actually going to leave mine for the default there. It seems to work fine for me. Great. So I'm going to delete that. Okay, well, we've got our first slide. We're still in the main full width slider settings. Let's duplicate it, and let's perhaps have one with a video or an image on the left hand side there. So to duplicate, I'm going to hit the two little squares. Just go into our second one now, which will look identical to our first one. I'm not going to change anything here. I'm just going to add an image or a video, whichever you prefer. And you'll see when I add it, it pops it in on the left hand side and aligns our title over there. Now for this one, I'd like to take that title down a little bit in size. So let's go back over. Here's the title text. I'm just going to roll down a little bit, and let's take it down a little bit in size. That works for me. And we'll change the image in the background there. So still on our content tab, we can go down to the background, and let's take the color away this time, and we'll use an overlay for this one. So I'm going to go to the image, we'll take that image away, we'll add a new one, and let's use that city one. There we have it, and things are getting a little lost in the background there. That's kind of busy. You can read it, but it's kind of difficult because of the busy background there. So if we go over to design this time and to overlay, use background overlay, and it darkens it out and brings that forward a bit. If you want to change the actual color, click on the little paintbrush field there, and you can either bring the color up so it goes darker, and the right hand one, you've got opacity, so you can slide it down so you can see as much as the image as you want and nicely read all the text and things over here. I think I still need to take that down a little bit in size. So still on the design tab, here's our title text. We did this before, I obviously didn't take it down quite enough. That's more like it. Now, because our slides are slightly different sizes from each other, I'm going to make this a common size in the common settings in a minute. I'm happy with that. Only other things I want to do, could put some round corners on there perhaps, and move the button to the right hand side. So let's go on down. Here's our button. If I move this across to the left so you can see, I'm simply going to align it to the right. Great. And for that image, if we go back up, there's the image. You can give it rounded corners, let's say 20. That's made that rounded there. And if you wanted to, you could give it a border. I'm going to leave that as it is. I will put a little bit of box shadow on there. Great. So we've got two slides now. I'm not going to do any more than that. I'm sure you figured out how to do it, but I want this to automate, and I also want both slides to be the same size. And now we've got more than one slide on there. When I hover over, you can see the navigation and the pagination dots on the bottom. So let's save this, and it'll take us back to our main slider module. I'm going to go over to my design, and again I'm going to go down to sizing. Let's make it a common height for all slides by going down to height and rolling it, or typing in a value to where we want it. That looks pretty good to me. Let's say 600. Let's roll it down to 600. Yeah, that's going to work fine. And I want this to animate automatically. So still on the design tab, roll all the way down to the bottom, and we've got animation. Now, if you don't see animation at the bottom there, chances are you're in one of your slides. If we go into a slide, design, no animation. So if you don't see it, hit the little green arrow, take you back to the main slider settings, back over to design, down to the bottom. Here's animation. I'm going to turn that on so it automatically animates. It's set to do it every 7 seconds. I'm going to change mine to perhaps every 5 seconds, 5,000 milliseconds. And I want it to continue automatic slide on hover. That's if they put their mouse on it. It's not going to stop if you put that to yes. I like it to stop so they can read things, look at the images and click on things if they need to. So I'm going to leave it just like it is. And you just need to rinse and repeat for more slides. Obviously, I'm going to leave mine at 2. And we should be good to go. So let's save our changes here. We'll go down and save the page changes, little purple button at the bottom. Save draft or publish if you're ready. And exit the Visual Builder. And there it is. There's our little hero section slider. That should roll around every 5 seconds. Now we've got 2 slightly different slides there. Like I say, you can add more very easily. Here we are with the slider we built last time. Let's enable the Visual Builder and we'll build the About section. Once loaded, let's go down to where we want to work. I'm going to hit this little purple button. It's usually a blue button for a section. It's purple because we've used a full width section for the top one there. I'm going to add a regular section underneath. In that section, I'm going to start off with a title introducing our section. So I'm going to use a single column. Inside there, I'm going to use a simple text module. And let's just say about, or about us, whatever it is you want to say for yours. I'm going to make that into a title, so I'm going to select it, making a heading 2. And let's go and put a bit of styling on it now. I'm going to hit the little paintbrush icon to go straight to the H2 edit. There it is right there. Let's move this up so we can see what's going on here. As with Divi, you've got a huge amount of fonts to choose from. To audition one, just roll over it with your mouse. It'll give you an example of that font. I'm going to leave mine on the default today. Okay, well I've been using sort of blues and purples on this site, so I'm going to make my heading blue. I'm going to make it perhaps semi-bold, and I think I'll capitalize it and make it a bit bigger. I also want it to be in the middle, so I'm going to line it in the middle right there. Let's bring it up to say 50 pixels. You can type in a value, just put in the 50, it'll put in the pixels for you. Or you can slide up. You can also increment up now with the little arrows. Just to make that stand out a bit more, I'm going to put a bit of text shadow on there. Great. Well, I'm fairly happy with that. Now, because we might be using this title on several different pages, I'm going to save it to my library. To do that, let's just save it. This way we can reuse it. Click on the module. Little round icon between the 2 squares and the trash can there. We can save it to our library. So let's call it perhaps one page title. And hit save. Great, well I'm going to leave my section white like it is. I like my second section to be nice and bright like that. If you wanted to put an image or a colour or a mixture of them in this section, just go into the section tab, blue tab for a section, little cog. Inside you can add a colour, a gradient, an image, a video, background pattern or background mask, and you can combine colours, gradients and images to get some great effects there. But as I say, I'm leaving mine simple and white like that. Great. Well, let's move on. Down below I want to have 2 little sections. I'm going to keep this as simple and easy as possible. So I'm going to add a new row, little green button to add a row. I'm going to have sort of 50-50, 2 columns. In this first one, I'm going to have an image, either of the business or somebody in the business. Just click on the image to add one. I'm going to use the same image as I used before there. Obviously, if you don't have your image installed already, just simply drag it over to here, let it go, drop it, and upload it. And if we roll down a bit now, there's that image for us. Great. Down below the image, if you want to link it to somewhere, you can put your link in here. Always best practice, if you're linking to the same site, leave it in the same window. If you're linking to somebody else's site, perhaps her Facebook page or something like that, open it in a new tab. That way your site's going to stay open. If you want to pop that out into a light box, you've got the option to do that here. Just switch that button to on. And what that does when they click on it, it'll pop out into a larger version of the image. I don't want a light box. I'll just put a hashtag in the place of a link there. Perhaps it goes to her bio or something like that. Great, well that's all I'm going to do to that side. And our next side, this side over here, I'm perhaps going to have my logo and then some information about either this person or my business here. So let's add a new module. I'm going to use the Divi blurb module for mine today. That lets us add an image at the top, a title, and some content underneath. Okay, well I'm not going to use a title. I'm actually going to pop my logo at the top there, I think. And for the content, I'm going to get some dummy text. Obviously, you'd have some real text about your site. I'm going to use some lorem ipsum here, which is dummy text that our designers use. And let's take a few of these gaps away. Great. And for the image, if we roll down a little bit more, I'm going to use my logo. I've already got that uploaded because we used it in our slider before. Again, hit image and icon. If you choose to use an icon, you can do so here. Just switch that on if you'd rather use an icon on the image. Divi's just teamed up with Font Awesome 4, so there's a huge amount of icons to choose from here. A lot to scroll from, or you can do a search for something particular like a computer. Or if you do want to browse through them, the easiest way is they've got a little pop-out button here. If I click on that, it pops out into a larger version, makes it easier for you to scroll through, but there's a lot of scrolling there. Okay, but like I say, I'm using an image for mine today. So I'm going to flip that back to off. Go to my library here, and let's pop my little logo in there. And there it is, that works for me. Again, if you want to link this module to somewhere, you can link the title one place. We're not actually using a title. Well, the whole module down below there, same best practices apply. I'm not going to have any background on this. Design-wise, as usual, you can make the image larger or smaller if you want to here. I'll take it down just a little bit. And of course you can align it left, center or right. I'm going to leave mine in the center there. Don't want any rounded corners or borders. Moving on down, you've got your text, which will do all the text at once. If you have a title, it'll do all of it. You can turn it dark or light in color, put it in the middle, wherever you want. Better turn that back because light doesn't work very well on a white background. Give it text shadow if you want to. I don't usually use text shadow on small text like that unless it's on a button or something, because it tends to make it a little blurry looking for me. And again, if you want to go straight to the thing that you want to edit, you can hit the little paintbrush that's beside it there. For instance, we can go to our text here, change the font color, style, everything like that. So I'm fairly happy with that for our little about section. Very simple, very easy to do. I'm trying to keep these videos as simple as possible. Obviously, you can go to town and add whatever you need to add to that. So let's save our changes and make sure it's going to work. Save draft or publish if you're ready. And let's exit the Visual Builder. There we go. And there's our slider. If we roll down, we've got our little about section with the image. It's got our link to perhaps her bio or something in there. We've got our little logo and some information about our site. And that's a nice little simple about section there. And we'll be hooking all these sections up with a menu when we finish building them. And today we're going to be working on our little services section up here. Here's where we left off last time. Got the full width slider, and there's your little about us section. So let's add the services section. Going to enable the visual builder. Once enabled, let's go down to where we want to work. There's our last section. I'm going to click on that section, hit the little blue button to add a new one. I'm going to use a regular section for this. First thing I'm going to do is put in a single column in our little row there. I'm going to add a title. Now we saved one to our library last time that we can reuse over and over again. So if we go to the library, and if you're not sure how to do this, just check out that last video. There's the title we saved. I'm going to go ahead and say use this module. And there it is, it's popped it in there. I just need to go in there and change that to services. There we go. I think this section I'm going to have a different color, but let's add a few modules to it before we decide on that. Now for anybody that didn't watch the other one, we're using 50 pixels default font there, blue with a bit of text shadow. Great. So let's save that. We'll move on down. Just going to click on the row. We'll add another row, and here we're going to put in 3 columns to add our little services. Obviously you put it in as many or as few as you want. And for our services, I'm going to use the blur module again, which is a fantastic little module. Lets you use an icon or an image. Let's just roll down a bit so you can see it. And what we'll do, we'll style the first one, and then we'll clone it for the other services once we're happy with the styling. So obviously your title goes up at the top there. Let's say web design. As you can see, it's changed it down there. Content goes down here. I've got no real content. Obviously you would have. And obviously you can align it like any other text box, bold, italicized, make titles, and add media if you want to. I'm going to leave mine just like that. If we roll down a little bit more, we've got image and icon. Well, there's the placeholder image it puts in by default. I'm actually going to use an icon for mine today, so I'm going to switch this use icon switch to on. What do you guess? And then you can search for an icon. Well, I'm doing web design, so let's perhaps have a computer. And there's plenty to choose from there. And you can see it right there. Great. Well, if you want to link this module to somewhere, perhaps another section, seeing as we're doing a one-page site, or to another page off-site, we can do it with a link below. And you can link the title and the module separately. The module link's going to, anywhere on the module that they click, it will take them there. Title link, they'll have to click on the title for something there. I'm not going to link these particular modules. I'm just going to put a little bit of information in each one. So I'm going to leave these blank. Background wise, well, we've been using blues and purples, so let's make this blue. And as you can see, it's got everything butted up against the sides there, so I like to put a bit of padding around just so it's not quite so cramped looking there. We'll do that in a second. But I think what I'd like too is if when people hover over it, we'd like to have a different color background. And we can do that the same as we did with the button in earlier videos. Go up to the top. This is common to most Divi modules. Let's just roll down a bit. If you hover over dark writing up here, you'll see some little icons appear. If there's a little arrow, we can set a hover state. Desktop state is when the mouse is not on it. We'll keep that as blue. Hover state, let's make that purple. So when they put their mouse on it, it'll change color. When they take the mouse off, it'll go back to our blue there. If you need to change the timing that it takes to go from one to the other, default 300 milliseconds, you can go over to the Advanced tab. And again, this is common to all Divi modules. Go down to Transitions. There's the default 300. I'm happy with that for this today. But if you want to slow it down, slide it to the right. If you want to speed it up, slide it to the left. Or you can type in a value. Transition delay is if you want their mouse to sit on it for a while before it starts. I don't want any delay. I want it to happen right away. They've got several different speed curves here. Ease in out is great for hover. Ease will work. They're all slightly different. Some will work better than others in certain situations, so do check them out. Great. Well, I'm happy with everything on our content tab now. We just need to style this and make it look a little bit better. So let's move over to the design tab. Image and icon. I'm going to make my icon white. I'm not going to have a background color on it. I want it perhaps a little bit smaller than that. So let's take that down a little bit in size. I'm going to take mine down to about 65 pixels I think I used before. Obviously you make yours the size you want. And again, you can slide up and down and you can increment, fine tune it with the little arrows on the right hand side there. Yeah, that's going to be about right for me. And I want it in the middle. That's good. Rolling on down. If you wanted to, you could have a hover color on it also by doing the same thing over the color right here. I'm going to leave mine just as white there. And rolling on down. Let's go to our text. Well, I want it all in the middle. So I'm going to hit the text. I'm going to hit middle. You can change them separately in title and body text down below, but I'm going to just flip mine all to light. I'm going to go down to my title text below. You can either go down to there or you can roll over it and hit the little paintbrush. It'll take you straight to it. I think I might make that semi-bold just to make it stand out a little bit. And on a background like this, a little bit of text shadow might work too, just to lift it off. That's entirely up to you. I'm going to leave mine off. Great, well let's move down a little bit more. I'm going to leave the body text just as it is, the default. But as with all things Divi, if you want to change the font, it's got a huge amount of fonts here. Just click on it, roll over one to audition it, it'll show you an example. Like I say, I'm going to use the default for mine today. And the text color's fine. So let's roll on down. Next we've got sizing. Well, I'm going to make several of these boxes and they're going to have different amounts of text in them, but I want all of these boxes to remain the same height. So to do that, I'm actually going to give it a minimum height. Now, minimum height will let it get bigger on other devices, but it won't get any smaller than what we set there. So for the minimum height down here, I'm going to say 350 pixels. Just put in the 350, it'll put in the pixels for you. And there it is, as you can see, it's given it a bit of height. I'm going to add a bit of padding to separate all this. And if you want to check it on tablet and mobile, and again, this is common to all Divi modules, just roll over the thing that you want to check, hit the little mobile phone type icon there. You can check it on desktop. I'll move this out of the way. There it is on tablet. And I'm going to add a bit of padding and what have you. And here it is on phone. And you can set different values for each one if you need to. So let's give it a bit of spacing and finish it off, then we'll check it again. Go back down to where we were. Okay, well I'm going to close up the sizing. Let's move this back over and go to spacing. I'm going to put perhaps 30 pixels on the top, and again just put in the 30, it'll put in the pics for you. And maybe 20 left and right. And to do the opposite side, you can just hit the chain. Yeah, that's a bit more like it. I think I'll give it some rounded corners and perhaps a bit of box shadow to take it off the page. So if we move down a little bit more, here's the border. I'm going to give it maybe 10 pics. The higher value that you give it, the bigger the curve will be up there, obviously. If you've got the little chain checked in the middle, it's going to do all four corners for you at once. If you take it off, you can get some crazy shapes going by doing different values each side. I've seen this done quite a lot. But it's entirely up to you. I like to have mine fairly uniform, so I'm going to keep mine at, say, 10 pics, which is what I think worked for me last time. Great. Well, I'm not going to put a border on it. If you do, you can put a coloured border or whatever, top, bottom, separately. You can do all at once, top, right, bottom, and left separately. Give it a width there. But as I say, I'm happy to leave mine as it is. Of course, you've got border colour and the various default styles, dashed, dotted, doubled, etc. Okay, well, let's put a bit of box shadow on there, just to lift it off the page. I think I'm going to give this section a bit of coloured background just to separate it from the section above. But while we're here, let's take another look at this on tablet and mobile, make sure it's going to work on both. So I'm going to go back up to, say, spacing. It doesn't matter where you go, we'll just have a look at it. Here it is on our desktop, obviously. Here it is on a tablet. Could use a little bit more padding on the bottom on the tablet probably. And here it is on a mobile. And again, I think it could perhaps use a little bit of padding on the bottom. So what I'm going to do, I'll go back to desktop state and I want to go to the thing that I want to affect, which is padding here. So let's go back to desktop on the padding. And what I'll do, roll down to where we are so you can see what's going on. I'm going to hit the chain and give it the same amount on the bottom there. Now you don't see it on the desktop version here purely because we've given it a fixed height, and that's probably slightly more than 30 pixels. But now when we go to tablet, it's got that on there, and similar for mobile. Great, well I'm fairly happy with that. So let's save what we've got there and it'll go back to our desktop view. I'm going to duplicate this, say, another 5 times, so we've got 6 of them. Obviously, whatever your services are. To duplicate, simply go in there, click on the module. 2 little squares there, it will duplicate it for you. Simply duplicate one, doesn't matter which one you drag over, they're both identical. Duplicate again. And you're going to want to have different text and different icons. I'll do the first one, then I'll pause the video and do the rest. No point you watching me rinse and repeat. But to go in there, just change it. Hit the little cog. Say maybe content writing. I'll take some of this text away here. And you won't see any height difference when I do that because we've given it a fixed height. As you can see, there's a lot less text, but it's stayed the same height there. And of course, I want to change the image and icon, perhaps to a pen. And let's pop that one in. Great. Well, I'll pause this and I'll do another 4 or 5 of these. So we've got 2 rows here. Okay, there we are. We've got 6 of them now. And I think, like I say, I'm going to make a different background on this services section. To do that, we need to go up to the actual section itself. So click on the section, little blue tab up here, little cog, and we can go in and add a background color. Now you've got color, gradient, image, background video, background pattern, or background mask. And you can actually combine background colors and images or background gradients and images. And there's some great features here. For instance, I'm just going to have a color on this, but I will demonstrate blending. So if we wanted to put a background image in there, just click on the image, add the image you want, and it's a little bit like our slider we did. There's an image. If that's too much for you, you can blend it with a color. So if we go back to a color, choose whatever color it is you want. Let's just grab a purple for argument's sake. Then click back on the background image itself. Just roll this up slightly. You can use a parallax effect if you want just the image to move up and down at a different speed than the rest of the site. Or they've got what they call CSS parallax or fixed background image if you want that image to stay exactly where it is when you roll up and down. But I was going to demonstrate blending the colors here. So you can't use that if you're using parallax. So we'll need to turn the parallax off and then roll down, and you've got background image blend down below. Click on it. One I like to use for a lot of these is multiply, and it'll just simply multiply that purple color with the background. You get some fantastic effects there. They really do have some wonderful filters here. So do take a look through things like saturation. You can get some wonderful effects. And of course luminosity, I see that a lot, that brings everything out. So have a look through if you want to make things really interesting using those filters, but that's a great feature. But we're not actually going to use an image. I just want to use a simple color. I just wanted to show you how to do that. And of course, once you've got that, you can add a background pattern if you want to. There's polka dots for you. Or you can add a background mask if you want to, and have it masked out like that. But, like I say, I'm going for a simple color, so I'll get rid of that. Get rid of our pattern. We'll get rid of the image. And although that's okay, I think I just want a sort of grey colour. So simply go to your colour, choose something that's close to what you want, or you can hit the little three dots down below. And let's just grab a sort of light grey. That's going to work for me today. There we go. And I'm happy with that. So let's save our changes. We'll save the page changes, save draft or publish if you're ready, and exit the Visual Builder. Roll on down to where we were working. And there's our little services section right there. And when we roll over one, it's going to change to purple. We're going to continue on with our one-page scrolling website build today. We've got an About Us section we've done, services section, little team section we did yesterday. Today we're going to move on to our project section, and in future videos we're going to do a little testimonial with a slider there, a little portfolio section, and a little contact section with a live Google map. So let's continue on with our project section. Here's our site where we left off in the last video. Let's enable the Visual Builder so we can build on the front end. Once enabled, let's roll down where we want to work. Here's where we left it yesterday, our little team section we built. I'm going to add a new section by simply clicking on the existing section and hitting the little blue button here to add a new section. I'm going to use a regular section for this. And as with the other sections, first thing I want to do is add a little title to our section. So I'm going to add a single row. And we saved our decorated titles to the library here. So I'm going to add from library. And if you don't know what I'm doing here, check out video number 2. There's the one-page title. I'm going to use this module. And there it is, it's put it in. For anybody that doesn't have this in their library, we're just using 50 pixel default font, uppercase, blue, with a bit of text shadow there. Great. Well, I want to edit it and call it projects instead of about us for this one. So I'm simply going to go in there and say projects. Great. Fantastic, that's the title done. Down below, I'm going to have 3 little animated number counters. So I'm going to add 3 columns. To do that, click anywhere on the row that we've got there, the little green box. Hit the green button for a new row. I'm going to put in 3 columns. I'm going to use circle counters for ours today. Let's just roll this down and move this over. There's our little circle counter right there. Okay, before I actually go any further with decorating this, I'm going to put a parallax background in the back of our section here. So let's save this little number counter. So let's go up to our section tab in the top left corner, just click on the field, blue tab for a section. I'm going to hit the cog to go in there. Let's go down to background. And I'm going to pop an image in there, background image. You've got color, gradient, image, video, background pattern or background mask, and you can use combinations of them. But I'm going to use a simple image for this today. And I'll use the same image as I used before, which was that dark sort of city one there. And just to make this a little more interesting today, I'm going to use the parallax effect. And we've got 2 different versions here. We've got true parallax. That means if I roll up and down the site, that background will move at a slightly different rate than the foreground there, which is a nice little effect. Well, they've got what they call CSS parallax or fixed background. And that'll keep the image exactly where it is. It won't move at all, which is pretty dramatic. But I'm going to leave mine on true parallax for this today. Great. Now we've got a background in there, I can start decorating this the way that I want to decorate it. Okay, so we'll save our section background there. Now let's go back into this module and make it how we want it. Again, I'm going to click on the cog, dark tab for the module. Let's move this over. And you can put in a title here. Let's just say web design. And what I'm going to do so you can see it a little better is actually put it in there. Let's go over to my design, to the text, and this will turn all the text light in color. That way we'll be able to see it a bit better. There we go, there's the web design. There's a 50% up there. Now if you want to do percentage, that's fine. Put in whatever number you want here. For this one, it's best to do a number between 1 and 100. For the number counters, you can do higher ones. You can do a huge number if you want to, but the actual circle itself will stop at 100. It'll be full at 100 right there. So I'm going to put in, say, 75. And I really don't want a percentage because this is a number of web design projects that we've got there. So in Elements, just below that, I can turn the percentage sign off. Great. Now, if you want to link this to perhaps one of your projects or something, you can do down below here. Simply put the link in there. Anywhere they click on this particular module will take them to this link. Always best practice, if you're linking to your own site, keep it in the same window. If you're linking off-site, open it in a new tab. That way your site's going to stay open. Now, I don't want a background because I'm happy with what's going on there. I am going to put a little dark background around the whole thing when we've finished it. Let's move on to our design tab here. Here's our circle. I'm going to make the circle color itself white. I'm going to make the background blue, I believe. That's the bit that's left over there. And for my title, let's move down a bit more. And for my title text here, I'm going to bring that a little bit up in size and capitalize it. So I'm going to capitalize it. Let's perhaps make it semi-bold and a bit bigger in size. So I'm going to roll down, bring that up to whatever size you want yours. Great, well, I'm fairly happy with that, so I'm going to clone it and move on. So I'm going to save it, a little green check mark. I want to clone it, just go over to the module right there. Two little squares in between the cog and the circle. That's going to duplicate it. Drag one over, doesn't matter which one, because they're both the same. And we'll go into this one now. And let's say perhaps SEO or something like that. We'll change out that number. I move this across, you can see, there it is. And we'll do exactly the same again. Let's save our changes. I'm going to clone it one more time. Drag one across, again, it doesn't matter which one. And we'll go into this one. And let's call this one development. And we'll give it a different number. Great, well, that's pretty good. But to make it stand out, let's just save this. I'm going to wrap this whole row in a little background mask. So I'm going to click on anywhere in this row, go into the green tab there. And I'm going to give it a background color. That'll make these circles stand out a bit more against that image in the background, but you'll still be able to see the image. So under the content tab, we're going to go down to the background. I'm going to add a simple black color. I'm going to click on the field, and over to the right hand side we've got a variegated slider, which is opacity or transparency or see-throughness. Just take it down as much as you want to, with still being able to see a bit of the image behind. But as you can see, it's making that little counter pop and stand out a lot better. So I'm going to leave mine about there. Obviously you adjust yours how you want to. And I'm going to give this slightly rounded corners as well. So in the design tab, I'm going to go down to border. Make sure the change checked. And let's give it, say, 20 pixels all around. Just put in the 20, it'll put in the pixels for you. And we've got little rounded corners there. If I save this, you can see that stands out a lot better. Let's also perhaps change the project's color to white. So we'll go in there, hit the little cog, I'm going to hit the little paintbrush to take me straight to it, and I'm going to change that to white. There we have it. Great. Now underneath our little stat counter here, I think I'd like to have just a little paragraph and maybe a call to action button. So again, I'm going to click on the row anywhere. I'm going to hit the green button to add a new row. I'm going to add a single column, and inside I'm going to put a simple text module all the way down to the bottom. Anybody that wants to know what the blue ones are there, they're from a free plugin called Divi Supreme Light. The link's below if anybody wants to check it out. We're not using that one today though. Great, well I've put that in there, and I'm going to leave the default in there. Obviously you'd have something specific to say. I don't, but I just wanted a paragraph in there. Let's go over to our design, to the text. I'm going to pop it in the middle and make it light in color. Roll down a bit, we can pop it in the middle. Great. Now I just want to add a little call to action button down below. And we've actually got one up here, but we'll create one from scratch. You could copy the one from the top there. So I'm not going to add another row, I'll just add this to the row. So click inside the row, click on the module itself. To add a new module, just hit the little dark button right there to add a new module. And we'll add a button. And let's say more information perhaps. That's great. Down below we'll put our link. I won't put a link in there just now, I'll just put a hashtag in there as a placeholder. But when we go through and do the menu at the end to link all these sections, we'll also do links for the buttons so we can have this scroll to a different section perhaps, or they'll contact us if they want to reach out. Okay, design wise I want to make it similar to our top button, which was sort of purple and rounded. So I'm going to go design, alignment, I want it in the middle. Text, well actually I'm going to leave that because I'm going to go straight into the button. So I'm going to go into the button. I'm going to turn the switch for use custom styles for button to yes. Text size is actually fine there. Button text color, I'm going to make that white. Button background, I'm going to make purple. I'm going to take away that border. I really don't want a border on my button there. So we've got button border width just down below. Just pop that down to 0. You've got no border. But I do want to give it rounded corners. And also when they hover over it, I'd like for it to change color. And I don't think I want that icon there. So I'm going to lose the icon and give it some rounded corners. First thing, let's give it that hover color. So when they're not hovering over it, it's going to be purple. When they put their mouse on it, I want it to be blue. Common to most Divi modules, if you just roll up to the dark writing to the thing that you want to affect, which is our button background here. If there's an arrow there, there is in this case, you've got a desktop state when the mouse is not on it. Fantastic, we'll leave that as purple. When they hover over it, I want it to change to blue. Fantastic. Now the default time that Divi takes to go from desktop to hover state is 300 milliseconds. If you want to slow it down or even speed it up, you can do so in your advanced tab. Down to transitions, there's the default 300. You can slide it to the right to slow it down, to the left to speed it up. You can type in a value and you can increment up and down with little arrows there. Transition delay, if you want their mouse to sit on it before it actually does any transition, you can add a delay time there. Speed curve, ease is good. Ease in and out I tend to use for a lot of hover effects. They're all slightly different. Some will work different than others in certain situations, so do check them out. But ease is perfectly fine for this today. Great. So I just want to give it some rounded corners. Back to our design. Down to our button again. Let's roll down the button border radius. There it is. And let's give it, say, 50. And again, just put in the 50, it'll put it at the pix. And as you can see, that's giving it rounded corners. Okay, well, I didn't want an icon when I hover over it, so I'm going to roll down. Default, it's set to show the icon there. And you've got plenty to choose from. You can put in a search if you want to, or there's a little button here that will break it out and let you scroll through, and there's a lot of scrolling to be done. They've just teamed up with Font Awesome 4, but like I say, I don't want the button in my case today, so I'm going to simply switch that to off. Fantastic. Great. With buttons, it's not a bad idea to give it a bit of text shadow if I put some on there. So it just slightly makes it stand out on that button. Okay. And let's just lift it off the page a bit with a box shadow. As we got a dark background, it won't make a whole lot of difference, but over the lighter parts, it will. All right, well, I'm fairly happy with my little project section here. Let's save the button changes there. We've got our button, we've got our little info paragraph, we got our counters and a title up there. So let's save the changes, little purple button down here. Save draft or publish if you're ready. And let's exit the Visual Builder. Okay, well, let's roll down to where we were working. There's the About, there's the Services, there's our little Team section, and here's our Project section with the animated counters going up there. And we got our little title and a call to action button. And of course, we got that parallax background. So there you go, guys. there's a nice little project section for you. Today we're going to be working on our team section. So let's go to the page we were building. So I'm going to enable the visual builder. And let's roll on down to where we last left off, just below the services section here. I'm going to add a new row by clicking on the section, hitting the little blue button to add a new section. I'm going to use a regular section. Inside the section, the first thing we want to do is put the title in. So again, I'm going to use a single column, single row. Now we saved our title to library so we could reuse it. There it is right there. Anybody doesn't quite know what I'm doing here, we saved our title into our Divi library here. There it is. So we could reuse it without having to restyle or anything. Of course, we just need to go in there and change it now. Anybody doesn't know how to do that, have a look at the first video we did. And of course, I'm going to change this to our team. Great, well that's the first bit done. And for anybody that doesn't want to save from library, we're using 50-point default font with a bit of text shadow and the default blue color there. So let's save that and we'll move on. Okay, well let's start adding our team members now. So I'm going to click on the row, the green little section there. I'm going to add a new row, the little green button for a row. And this time I'm going to put in 4 columns. Great, and inside our first column, I'm going to use a Divi person module. Divi comes with all these modules as standard. There's a little person module. Let's roll on down. And put the name in here, obviously. Let's say CEO for the position, perhaps. And you can see it doing it under here. Perhaps if I move this over a little closer. So we've got Jane Smith, CEO. If you want to add their social links, their Facebook, Twitter, etc., just put a link in here for the ones that you want. I'm going to put a hashtag in as a placeholder. I'm not going to use Google Plus because it doesn't exist anymore, but I'll put those 3 in right there. And I'm going to take a bit of this text away. I don't want too much text in this little box. Of course, you're going to have something real to say about your team. I don't. Okay, great. Well, we've got our text and our social links in there. If we move on down, now we need to choose the image for this person. I'm going to use one of my existing. If you don't have one, just get whatever image it is that you want and drag it and drop it up here. I've got square images. Square images work best for this because I'm going to make them round. And to make images round, you really want to start with a square image. So I'm going to call this lady Jane Smith. And let's upload the image. There it is right there. So we've got the basics of our first one there. What we're going to do now is we'll style this the way we actually want it. And then we'll clone it to add the next 3. So let's move on to our design tab here. Okay, and if we start on with the icon just down below here, that's our little Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn icons down there. I'm going to make mine blue. I'm going to make them slightly bigger. To do that, we need to switch this little switch to on or to yes. And then we can slide up and down till they're the size you want. You can also type in a value or use the little arrows to increment up and down if you want to. That's fine. Image wise, I'm going to go in there. I want mine round like I said, so I'm going to give it quite high borders. Keep the chain linked so I can do all corners at once. And I'm going to put it to 50%, which will make these round 50 and the percent sign. And there we've got a round image. I think I'm going to offset it a little bit with a border. So I want all borders done at once. You can do top, right, bottom and left separately if you want to. Let's make it say 2 pixels and I'll continue using that default blue that I've been using. Maybe 1 more pixel. There we go. That works for me. And as usual, you've got the various styles for borders. Dotted, doubled, grooved, ridged, etc. there. I'm going to leave mine on plain solid. You can put a little box shadow there if you want to lift it off the page. That's quite a nice little feature. And you can change the box shadow positions and colours down below. I'm going to leave mine on the default right there. Let's move on down a bit to our text. Well, I want all of my text to be in the middle. So I'm going to go into the just general text, which is just the text box there. I'm going to hit the middle line. That's more like it for me. Text color is dark's fine. I am going to color up the actual name and the position there. So if we go down a little bit more, here's the title text, the name. I'm going to make that blue. I'm going to make it uppercase. Let's make it semi-bold perhaps, just to lift it off the page. Or make it stand out a little bit more. That's fine. Perhaps a little bit bigger in size. We've got 18 there. Let's take it up to 25. That's great. With titles, you can use a bit of text shadow if you want to. But sometimes with me, unless it's a real big title, it kind of makes it look a little bit blurry. So I'm going to leave mine off. But do experiment and see what works for you. If we move on down, we've got the body text. That I'm going to leave just on the regular. And of course, you've got all these options for all your fonts. Divi, as I'm sure you know if you've seen any of my other videos, comes with a huge amount of fonts. To audition one, just roll over it. It'll give you an example. I'm just going to leave mine on the default today. That's going to work for me. Okay, let's roll down a little bit more. And we've got our position text there, CEO. I think I'll make that blue. Let's make it perhaps bold. And a little bit bigger. Yep, that works fine for me. Great, well that's shaping up. What I like to do is sort of give it a bit of border top and bottom, and we'll need to change a bit of padding and perhaps give it a bit of box shadow to lift it off the page. Now if we go down to spacing, I'm going to put a bit of padding around just so it's slightly less cramped. So I'm going to say 20 pixels. I'm going to give that top, bottom, left and right. Just put in the 20, it'll put in the pix. Hit the chain, it'll do the opposite side. We'll do the left and right also. And you may notice that image shrinks up just a little bit when we do that because we're pushing it into the sides, from the sides I should say. Just to make that a little more obvious, I'll put a bit of box shadow on there and that should become obvious. There we go. Now I've put the box shadow on there. You can see we've given it 20 pixels left, right, top and bottom. Okay, that's pretty much shaping up for me. The only other thing I'd like to do with this is perhaps give it a border top and bottom and maybe give it a fixed height because we may not have the same text for each and I'd like all of these to be a similar height. So if I close up our little box shadow, just above it you'll find border. I just want to put one on the top and the bottom, so I'm going to select top border. I'm going to select the amount that I want, probably about 3 pixels. I think we used that on our image border there. And I'm going to make mine blue again. And I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom border. So back up here to the bottom border. Similar, 3 pixel and blue. And like I say, I'm going to have different amounts of text in each one here. So let's give it a fixed height. So I actually need sizing for this, just 2 above the border there. And we'll go down, we'll use a minimum height for this. So I'm going to drag this down until it's about the height that I want it. I'm presuming this one will be my tallest one. So let's go for about 475, something like that. And you can slide up and down, you can type in a value, and again you can increment up with the little arrows right there. So that's going to work for me. When you're happy with yours, simply clone it and we can put 4 in there. Little 2 squares there to duplicate the module. Drag one of them over. And of course you're going to want to go in. I'll do the first one and then I'll pause the video and do the other 2 quickly. So you're going to want to go in. Put people's profiles in, obviously. Let's change this amount of text slightly. Like I say, they should remain exactly the same height. If I just move this over so you can see there, you'll see they're the same height there, even though we've got different amounts of text. And let's find an image of Bob. That'll do for our Bob. And I'll pause the video and just duplicate this 2 more times so we've got 4 of them. Okay, there we are. We've got 4 of them now. I've just cloned and added different images and a bit of text for each of those. Obviously, you'd have to update your social medias if you wanted to there. Perhaps underneath you'd like to say something about your team. So we'll simply add, we'll click on this green row and we'll add another single column row and put in a little paragraph perhaps about our team. And to do this, let's use a simple text module. Anybody wondering what the light blue ones there, they are from a free plugin called Divi Supreme Light, which is great, and the link's below the video if you want to check that out. I'm just going to use a text module for this today. I've got a bit of dummy text I'm going to put in there. And the only thing I really want to do here is perhaps align it in the middle. So I'm going to go over to my design, to the text, roll down, and align it in the middle there. Great. Well, let's just save this. For me, that's going to work for my section. If you want to decorate your section further, like we did with backgrounds and things, just click anywhere on the section. Go up to the top blue tab for a section. You can go in there. And you've got all the regular background options. You've got color, gradient, image, video, background pattern or background mask. And of course, don't forget, as we demonstrated in the last video, you can blend colors, gradients and images together. I'm going to leave mine just like that because I think it looks kind of nice and clean. So when you're happy, save the changes. We'll go down, we'll save the page changes. And let's exit the visual builder, make sure it's going to work on the front end. And let's roll on down. There's the about, there's the services we created last time. Here's our little team section. Great. Today we're going to be working on the testimonial section with a little slider there. Really easy to do, we're just using the Divi theme, no extra plugins for this. So let's go to our page we were building and enable the visual builder. Okay, once enabled, let's go down to where we want to work. We left off last time with the little project section there. I'm going to click on the bottom of this section. I'm going to hit the little blue button to add a new section. I'm going to use a regular section. As in most of our sections here, I just want to add a title to the top. And in the second video we built, we saved one to our library. So I'm going to add a single column. I'm going to go to my library. And there's the one-page title. I'm just going to pop that in there. For anybody that doesn't know how to load and save from library, have a look at that second video in the series. Or if you just want to build it, we're using the default font here, uppercase. We're using 50 pixels in size with the default blue and a little bit of text shadow there. Great, well we got our title. Of course I want to change this to testimonials. So you can click on it. You can either actually just type it in by selecting it, or you can go into the module. So that's going to work for me. Great. Well, underneath that, we want an actual revolving testimonial slider with some testimonials for our customers. So I'm going to click on the row, the green little square there. I'm going to add a new row, and inside, again, I'm just going to put a single column because that's where I want my slider to reside. Divi comes as standard with all these light grey modules here. Today, I'm going to use the slider module. There it is right there. Anybody that's wondering about the dark blue ones there, they're from a free plugin called Divi Supreme Light, but we're not using that in this build today. So I'm going to pop in a slider. Let's roll down a bit. And there it is. There's our first slide right there. I'm going to get rid of the second one. It gives you 2 by default. And with most of these, you probably notice the pattern that I have when I'm building. I'll get the first one right, then I'll just clone it for the rest of them. Unless, of course, you want to do individual styling on each of them. Okay, so let's go into our first one here. I'm going to hit the little cog. For the title, I'm going to put the name of the person. As you can see, it's up there, and we can style that any way we want in a minute. I'm not going to have a call to action button on mine. Basically, all I want is a name, some information, the testimonial if you like, and their position or company underneath. So I don't want a button. I'm simply going to select the click here and delete it. And as you can see, or as you can't see, the button's disappeared. Now where the content is, this is where I want to actually make the testimonial. So I'm going to grab that text there, I'm going to delete it. I've got a bit of dummy lorem ipsum text here. I'm going to copy that. Inside, I'm going to put it in some inverted commas. So I'm going to put some inverted commas in there, 2 pairs. An opening and a closing if you like. And I'm going to paste my dummy text in the middle. There it is right there with the inverted commas either end. Now, a lot of testimonials used to be the style with old style web building would always be in Georgia italic. So if you want to, you can select it and just hit the italic button right there to keep in line, but the styling's entirely up to you, obviously. Now down below, I want their position and their company, perhaps. Let's say CEO Biz Inc. Now to make that stand out a bit more, I'm going to make it into a heading 3. And again, I'm just going to select it, go up here, I'm going to click on the little paragraph chevron there and make it a heading 3. If we look down there, that's now heading 3. And I think I'll bold it and italicize it. That's fine. Now if you want it a little further down, you can add another space in there. Great. Well, moving on down, you can add images or videos to it. There's no point for a testimonial slider, so I'm going to skip over that. But if anybody wants to, you can add an image or a video in there. It'll appear on the left-hand side. So let's close that up and we'll go down to link. Now, if you choose to have a button in there and you want to link it somewhere, that's where you put the link. Or if you want the whole module to link somewhere, you can also put a link right there. Always best practice, if you're linking to your own site, keep it in the same window. If you're linking off-site, open it in a new tab. That way your site will stay open. Now I'm going to keep this fairly simple today with the background. I've been using sort of blues and purples here, but you can really go to town if you want to. For instance, I'll throw a blue in there. If you wanted to, you can combine that with images or gradients and background patterns. I'll just demonstrate a couple for you. If you wanted to chuck an image in there, simply go over to image, because we've got background color, gradient, image, video, background pattern, or background masks. So I'm going to chuck an image in, and I'll take any one just for reference, because I'm going to take it away in the end there. As you can see, you've got an image background there. If you want to actually blend it with the color that we had there, you can do that just down the bottom, background image blend. You can get some wonderful effects by doing that and make your text pop out really nicely. And like I say, they got some very interesting ones here. If you play around, you can get some amazing effects. Then once you've done that, if you want to, you can add a background pattern. Just click on the button there, choose polka dots, lines. It's got all kind of different things going on there. And you can color it. Take the opacity up and down so it's sort of slightly in there. And you can make it a custom size if you want to with the actual size right here. Slide it up and down. Now I'm just demonstrating this for you. I'm really not going to do that with mine. I want to keep them quite simple. But there's all kind of options. And of course the last one up there is the background masks. And you can add mask patterns if you want to. And there's quite a few to choose from here as well. But like I say, I'm just going to use a simple blue color on mine, so I'll take everything else away. There we go, great. So I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking, but it's way too deep for me. I don't want it to be as deep as that. And I perhaps want some rounded corners and a little bit of box shadow to lift it off the page. So let's move over to the design tab over here. Don't want an overlay, it's perfectly readable as it is. Navigation, well, when I add more, we'll have some little navigation buttons on the bottom there, or pagination buttons, and you can also have arrows left and right. Got no image, we've got the text down below there, but what I want to do is just make it a bit skinnier. I'm fairly happy with the way things are there. Might take that title, his name, down a little bit. So I'm going to the title text there, and let's perhaps make that uppercase. Let's make it a bit stronger, maybe semi-bold. I'll take it down a bit in size. I think that's plenty big enough. Obviously you style it however you wish. But I want to take some of this space away, top and bottom. I'm also going to give it a fixed height so that if we have different amounts of text in there, it's going to remain the same height. So let's roll on down to spacing. And of course you've got body text. If you want to style that text with a different font, you've got hundreds to choose from with the Divi. And to audition one, just roll over it. It'll give you an example. I'm going to leave mine on the default there. So I'm going to go down to spacing. And let's put a 0 top and bottom and see what we've got. Just going to put a 0 in the top there. Yeah, that's a little less than I want. So let's say 50. 50 pixels, that's great. And I'll do similar on the bottom. Not going to make too much difference on the bottom because I'm going to give it a fixed height in a moment, but for the smaller ones it may. So I'm going to hit the chain and it'll do the bottom automatically for us. Great, well that's kind of the size I want. Great, so we can close that up. I'm going to save it and it'll take us back to our main slider settings here. So I'm going to hit the little green button there. I want to give it some rounded corners, and also we'll give it that fixed height while we're in the main settings here. So let's go over to design, go to sizing, and we got minimum height there. So I'm going to use minimum height, that way it can get bigger on mobile devices if it needs to, but it can't get any smaller. So I'm going to say minimum height, and you can just drag it down to the size that you want. And like I say, this one's going to have the most text in it. So let's say 275. Let's round that down to 75. You can slide in, you can type a value in, and you can increment up and down with the little arrows there. Great. We can close up sizing now. Now let's just give it some rounded corners. To do that, we can go down to border. And let's type in, say, 30. The higher the value, the more rounded the corners will be. And you may not see this on the back end here, but when we save and look at it on the front end, it will have those corners. And let's just add a bit of box shadow. That'll just lift it off the page a little bit. Great. So we've got our first slide. It's looking kind of how we want it to, or at least how I want it to. Let's go into our content now, where our first slide is, and we can simply duplicate it for the other ones. Go in there. Obviously you're going to want to change the name, and they're not all going to have the same comments, so let's shave off a bit of this text perhaps. And you should notice that it stays the same height because we've given it a fixed height. And we'll put in the position, or whatever you want in there, whatever you want to put there. And simply rinse and repeat one more time, and then I'll show you how to automate it. Let's put one more in. And again, we'll shave a bit of this off. Great. So we got 3 of those slides now. Well, I want mine to animate automatically, and obviously you can keep adding as many testimonials as you have. So we'll save the slide settings here, and we'll go back into the main slider settings. We'll go down to design. Right at the bottom there, we've got animation. If you don't see it, chances are you're in one of your slides. So if we go to a content and into a slide and you go over to design, nothing there. So if you don't see it, you're probably in one of your slides. Just hit the green check mark, get back to the main slider settings, design, down to the bottom, and here's the animation. I want mine to automatically animate, and that's saying roll round every 7 seconds. I might change mine to 5 seconds, which would be 5,000 milliseconds. And I don't want it to continue when they've got their mouse on it, so I'll leave that to off. That way, when they put their mouse on it, it'll stop revolving round. If you turn that off, it'll keep revolving. I like to have it that way. That way they can put their mouse on it, give them a chance to read it before it slides to the next one, if they need to. Great. And as you can see, when I've got my mouse over there, we've got arrows here. We've got pagination dots on the bottom, which will stay there. If you want to design those, I'm happy to leave mine as they are. But if you do want to decide those, we've got navigation up here. And you can change your arrow color and dot color right there. So if we've done everything correctly, that should now work for us. And on the front end, we should also have rounded corners. So let's save this. We'll save the page changes, the little purple button at the bottom. Save draft or publish if you're ready. And let's exit the Visual Builder. And we'll roll on down to where we were working. And there's our little testimonial slider. It's sliding every 5 seconds. And changing. As you can see, it's staying the same height. And it'll stop when we put our mouse on it. And you can navigate backwards or forwards at your own speed. And the pagination dots will do the same thing down the bottom there. So there you go, guys. There's how to add a little testimonial section to your one-page scrolling slide with an automated slider. So let's get started. In this one, we're going to do the full width portfolio. So let's go to the site we were working on. I'm going to enable the visual builder. Okay, well, let's go down to where we want to work. There's where we left it. I'm going to add a new section for our full width portfolio. So I'm going to click on the row down here. I'm going to use a regular section for this. We are going to make it full width. If you use a full width section, you've got a few less widgets to play with. So I'm going to use a regular one and make it full width. Just like all the other sections, I'm going to add a single column, single row so we can put our title in from the library. And in our second video, we saved our title to the library so we could reuse it. Anybody who doesn't know how to do that, just watch the second video. I'm going to use this module right here. And there it is right there. For anybody that doesn't have it in the library, it's 50 pixels, default blue, uppercase, with a bit of text shadow there. Great. And of course, I want to change this. So I'm going to just put my cursor beside it. And let's call it portfolio. Down below, I want a full width portfolio gallery. So I'm going to hit the little green button there to add a new row. Again, I'm going to use a single row, single column. And I'm going to use the gallery module. There it is right there. Now I want to make this full width, and we can add some images from our library and show off the work that we've done perhaps, or the jobs or projects that we've done. So let's choose the images we want. I'm going to hit on the little plus button there. I'm going to add 8 images. I'm going to click on the first one and the last one. If you hold the shift down, it'll highlight all of those. If you want to uncheck one, just hit Control and you can uncheck it. Hit Control again and it'll reselect it for you. I'm going to add all of those. And as you can see, if I roll that up a bit, it's added them down below. But it's put in a little title there. I don't want that. And it's only showing 4 of them. You can move them around by simply left clicking, selecting them, and move them to where you want them. I'm going to leave it default order. I want to show 8, I think, because I put 8 in there, and I'm going to make it into this full width gallery too. If we go down to elements, I don't want the titles and things there. So I'm going to turn off my title and caption. And I don't need to show any pagination. You can if you've got more than 8 images there. You could load up 20 images and decide to just display 8 or something. Then you'd have pagination at the bottom to show more. I'm going to keep mine to 8 though. So I can turn the pagination off. Great. Well, if we go down to link, I want mine to pop out into a light box. So I'm not actually going to put any link in the modules whatsoever there. That way, when I click on them, they're going to pop out into a light box, which is a larger version of the image, and it's going to blank out the background a little bit with an overlay. Great. Well, you can choose a background down below, and you've got all the usual options. You've got color, gradient, image, video, background pattern, or background mask there. But again, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to color my section at the end of this, so I don't need a background in here. Great. Well, we've got what we need in there. Over in the design, you can decide what layout you want. Grid layout's good for me, but if you wanted a slider, that would give you a single image that just revolves through each slide. And you can paginate with some little arrows that pop up. They're hard to see, but there are little arrows there. And you can decorate the arrows how you want. But I want mine as a grid, so I'm going to leave it on the grid there. You can choose to have an overlay on the image itself, which is a color that pops up when you hover over the image there. And also an icon. So I'm going to put a little eyeball icon on mine to indicate it's something to look at. Overlay icon color, I'm going to make it white. Overlay background color, let's make it a sort of dark but not real black overlay. So I'm going to take the opacity down a little bit here. And I'll demonstrate this in a moment. And for the icon, I want an eye. There's a lot of icons to choose from there. I'm just going to type in a search, and that's going to do me fine. Great. That way when we roll over it, we're going to have a little eyeball there that we can click on, and it's going to darken out with our little overlay color out there. Now you can make your image rounded and oval shape using these borders here. I'm going to leave mine just as they are. I don't want any borders on them, and I don't want any box shadow on them. Great. Okay, well, let's make this full width. I actually want these images touching each other. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to go into the row that they're sitting in. We just click on it. It's the green border is the row. The green tab is how you edit the row. I'm going to make this full width by hitting the little cog. I'm going to go to Design and Sizing. I'm going to use a custom gutter width. I'm going to put this on. The gutter width is the space that's to the left, right, up and down of these. Those are the gutters. I don't want any space, so I'm going to take this all the way down to 1, all the way left there. So they're actually touching like that. That works for me. Fantastic. And if you've got slightly different images, you can equalize the column widths there if you want to. Great. Well, now I actually want to make this full width. So down in width just below, I'm going to take the slider up to 100%. I'm going to copy the 100% there, Control C. I'm going to paste it in the max width down below, Control V. Or you can just type it in. And as you can see, we've got a nice full width gallery section there. Fantastic. Well, that's going to work for me, but I actually want to change the color of this whole section perhaps to this blue, just to break it up from the section above, and that's entirely up to you, obviously. So to do that, let's save our little row settings here. We'll go into the actual section, which is a blue tab up at the top here, and I just clicked in the white space above. And I'm going to go into background, and again you've got all the regular background options. I'm simply going to turn mine blue. I'm going to want to change that writing to a light color for our little title there. And as you can see, we've got a bit of blue at the bottom. If you wanted to, you could end it there without the blue. Simply go to your section design, or we've got spacing, and we could take the padding off of the bottom if you didn't want that there by simply putting a 0 in there. A little bit left over, that's in the row. If you want to still get rid of that, we can go into the row itself, the green tab. Here's our row. And do exactly the same thing. Go into the design, spacing, padding bottom, 0. That's touching the bottom of the, or the top of the footer there, or the top of the next section. But we still got our blue in the top. Now I just need to make our writing light in color. So I'm going to go into the module, the dark tab, by clicking on it. Hit the little cog for this one. We can go over to design, or you can hit the little paintbrush icon over here. Will take us straight to that title, which is an H2. I'm going to make mine white. And there we have it. Let's just save our changes to see what this is going to look like on the front end. Let's save the text settings, save the page changes, save draft or publish if you're ready. And let's exit the Visual Builder. And we can roll on down to where we were working. There's our little portfolio section, the blue one. When I hover over, we've got this little eyeball icon and a little overlay that's darkening the background out slightly when we hover over it. Of course, when we click on one of these, it's going to pop out into a light box. You can close it. Obviously, that was a smaller image. We've got nice large images for our light box here to perhaps show off your work or your job or whatever it is you want to show off with your portfolio. So there you have it, guys. There's a full width portfolio section. I've got our build open on this side. I'm going to enable the Visual Builder. Once enabled, let's go down to where we want to work. Here's where we left off. I'm going to click on this section. I'm going to hit the blue button to add a new section. For this I'm going to use a regular section, and I'm going to insert a single row. As with the other sections, I'm going to insert a title that we saved to our library in the second video. Watch that if you're not sure how. So I'm going to hit add from library. There's the title that we saved. I'm going to just say use this module. And there it is, it's popped it in there. Obviously I want this to say contact us. So I'm going to pop my cursor in there and just change that to contact us. And there it is. For anybody that didn't know how to save and load from the library, we're just using the default font, 50 pixels, default blue with a bit of text shadow there. Great, well we've got our title. Let's move on down and create a new row for our icon list and our actual contact form. For this I'm going to use a row with slightly less on the left than the right there, so for our icon list on the left and our form on the right. So we'll pop that one in there. Great, and for this today I'm going to use the blurb module itself, right here. I'm going to get rid of any content. All I want is the title, and this is what we're going to use for our address, etc. So I'm going to put my address in here. I'm going to roll down. I want an image rather than an icon. Let's move this down and slide this up so you can see a little bit better. It's put it in there. There's the default placeholder image it puts in there. I don't want any image, I want an icon, and I want the icon to be on the left hand side. So I'm going to flip the little switch here on image and icon to yes. And I want perhaps a house for that one. That'll do fine. And there it is, it's popped it in there, but I want it a lot smaller than that. I want it on the left, and I want to perhaps use the default blue color that we've been using. I don't want to put any links in, but if you did want to put a link in, you could do it down below here. And we're just using a title, so you could put the title link in there. Or if you wanted the whole module, once we built it, to go somewhere, you could put another link in there. Always best practice, if you're linking to your own site, leave it in the same window. If you're linking off-site, open it in a new tab. Great. Well, I don't want any background on this. I just want the writing and the icon. We just need to design them the way we want. So I'm going to go to Design. I'm going to go to Image and Icon. My icon color, I want it to be blue, our default blue. And we've been using blues and purples. If you wanted to add a hover color to it, so it changes color on hover, you can do that by simply rolling over the dark writing. Some icons appear, and this is common to all Divi modules. Go to the thing you want to change. If there's an arrow there, we can set a desktop state, which I'll leave as blue. That's when your mouse is not on it. And we can set a hover state when you put your mouse on it. Let's change that to purple perhaps. Great. Default time it takes to get from one to the other is 300 milliseconds, or just under a third of a second with Divi. If you want to speed that up or slow it down, we can go over to the Advanced tab, down to Transitions, and you've got transition duration here. Slide it to the right to slow it down, to the left to speed it up, or you can type in a value if you want to. Everything else I'm going to leave on the default there. Okay, well let's go back in there. I want to roll down. I don't want my icon placement on the top. I want it on the left. So if I click on that little drop down, there it is on the left right there. Great. And the reason it's still purple there is I've still got my hover state selected up here. If you want to change it to regular that you see on the desktop, just click on the desktop. Great. Well, I don't want any rounded corners or border styles or anything like that. So I'm going to roll on down. I want to go straight to my title here. We can either roll on down to title text, or you can hit the little paintbrush icon just next to it right there. Take you straight there. What I'm going to do, I want that lined up in the middle of that icon there. So rather than mess with padding and margin, I'm going to do it with a bit of line height. Line height is the space above and below your writing here. So if I pull this up, you should see that pop down. There we go. As I'm pulling it to the right, it's popping down. And I want it somewhere in the middle like that. Obviously, you can put it on the bottom if you want to, by taking it a long way. I kind of want mine in the middle. So 2.2. I think that's about right for me. Great. Well, we've got our address there. I want to put the state and perhaps an email address, a fax, a phone number, and our opening hours. So instead of going through all this again, we can now start cloning this, which makes it a lot easier and a lot quicker. So let's save our changes here, little green button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this particular module and just line them up how I want them. And then I'll delete and we'll do it again. So I'm going to click on here. I'm going to hit the two little squares to clone it. There it is underneath. Fantastic. Now, that's way too far apart for me. If I just click off of here, that's way too far apart. So I'm going to adjust the padding on the top one. You see that little grey area on the bottom. That's a bit of padding on the bottom. Until I get them the right distance away, then we'll delete this one and clone this one again and have it the right distance. So I'm going to go in there, hit the little cog. This time I'm going to go to design and down to spacing. I'm going to go into margin. I'm going to put a 0 on the bottom. That's actually okay. That's about the distance apart I want them. So let's save that again. And what we can do is delete this second one now. Now we've got the spacing right. And I can clone this one again and it'll have the correct spacing. Great. So I'm going to go into this one and I want this to be perhaps the state. So we could use perhaps a map pin for that. Say New York and give it a zip code. I have no idea what the zip code is. I'm kind of making this up as I go along. And we'll also go into the image and icon and let's use like a map pin or something like that. Great. Fantastic. Then I'm going to rinse and repeat. I'm going to clone it one more time. And let's have my email address. So I'm going to go into the bottom one there, little cog, put in my email, and again we'll change the icon to perhaps an email icon. Email or mail would bring these up also. That's fine, just like that. What do we want next? Perhaps a telephone number. Again, I'm going to click on my existing one, hit the two squares to clone it, go into the next one, put in my telephone number. And remember, all this info we're putting in the title, not in the body down here. And we'll change this to a phone perhaps. That'll work fine. And we'll clone that one again and perhaps put in a fax number. This time I'm just going to change the last number of that one, which is quite often how fax numbers work. Again, I don't know if we've got a fax. I'm pretty sure we'll have something similar, so let's put in fax. There's a fax right there. Fantastic. And let's finish off perhaps with our opening hours. So if we go down one more time, we'll clone that one more time. Go into the one we've just created there. And let's say, put in whatever time you want. I'm going to put in 24/7/365. Basically open all the time. Let's put a big gap in there. And for the icon, let's perhaps have a clock. Great, well that'll work fine. Fantastic, well there we have it. There's our little icon list. I'm going to stop there for this video. And in the next one, we'll add our contact form and configure it over on this side. So let's save our changes. Save draft or publish if you're ready. We'll exit the Visual Builder. And we'll go on down to where we were working. And there's our little icon list there. And as we hover over the icons, they're changing color. And in our last video, we did an icon list. In this video, we're going to add the actual contact form and configure it. So let's get started. Here's the site we were working on. If I roll down, this is where we left off yesterday with our little icon list here. So I'm going to enable the Visual Builder. And once enabled, go down to where we want to work. And I've got a title there in one row, and then I've got a second row with a slightly smaller column on the left and a larger one on the right. I'm going to add our contact module for the one on the right here. Hit the little dark plus button there, and let's add a contact form. There it is right there. Simply going to left click, and it's going to pop in. And as you can see, by default, it puts in a name, email, and a message field. You can give your form a title if you want to. I'm not going to do that. A title would appear up there if I just put one in. You can see it appears up the top there, and like any other title, you can style it how you want. I don't want that for mine, but I do want it to display a success message when we send it. So let's say something like message sent, or whatever it is you want them to see when they submit the form. Down below you've got your submit button. I'm happy with mine to say submit, but if you want it to say something else, you just put it in there. As you can see, that's changed that to send now. I'm going to leave mine on the default. I quite like submit. Down below, here's the important one, where you actually want this form to be sent. So you want to put the email address you want this form sent to in here. So it's me@myemail.com, or whatever your email address is. Message pattern, I'm going to leave it just as it is. If you wanted to redirect them to another page or something like that after they sent it, you can do that here by enabling this, hitting the little switch there, and putting the URL of where you want to take them up there, whether it's another page or the top of this page. I'm going to leave mine to off because I just wanted to say message sent and keep them exactly where it is. Now down below we've got spam protection. That's a basic capture there. If I open this up, you can turn it on and off if you want to. If you're getting spam, it's a good idea to leave it off. If not, I'm going to turn it off like that. You can use a third-party one like Google Capture or something like that. You'd have to put in an API key, but I'm happy with just having none at the moment. Basic Capture seems to work pretty well too. Don't want to link this to anything, don't really want a background, so let's say you want to add a few more fields. I'm quite happy with the way that is, but you may want to add a few more fields like a subject or a telephone or something like that. To do that, we can just roll back up to the top and hit the add new field button. If you want to delete one of these, just hit the trash can right there. Let's say we want to add a subject field, so let's say subject, and I'll also give it a title. As you can see, it's put it in down here. Now you've got options here. You can choose the type of field that it is. It can be an input field, a field to put in your email address, like we've already got one of those there, text area, check boxes, radio buttons, or a drop down. I'll keep it as an input field. You can choose maximum length and minimum length up here. And you can choose which symbols are allowed. For instance, if there's a subject field, perhaps numbers and letters, which would be alphanumeric. If it was a phone type field, it would be numbers only. And you can make it required or not by clicking that little switch right there. I'm not going to go into conditional logic. Conditional logic is a great thing. You can have it if they answer this question and another one will pop up. I've made a whole video on that just on its own. Great, so when you're happy with your little new field, just hit the little check button. Goes back to the main settings, and you can left click and drag it wherever you want it. Let's put it just above the message field. Now perhaps if you wanted to put a shorter one in there, what you can do is you can go in there to whatever field you want, go into the design, into the layout, got make full width, or if you turn it off, it's going to make it half the width, and you can put another field in next door if you want to. For a subject line, I'm happy for that to be full width. Great. Well, I'm happy for that with our little contact form here. So we're back in the main form settings here. We can go into our design, and you can style your fields however you want. Background color, text color, focus text color, fields margin if you want to spread them out or make them in closer together if you want to. Padding, Font styles, as with Divi, you've got a crazy amount of fonts. To audition one, just roll over it and it will give you an example of that font. I'm going to leave mine all on the default today. And of course you can adjust all the regular things like letter spacing, line height, text shadow if you want it. Had you had a title, you can style the title here and all the regular text there. And if you keep the capture down there, you can style that right here. But as we're not using that, let's just move on to our button. I want to make our button a little more personal here, keeping with the rest of our site. So I'm going to hit the Use Custom Styles for Button, and we're in the main module settings in the Design tab, down to the button. I'm going to pop this one on. Okay, text size is actually fine. I'm going to turn it to white though, text color. It'll disappear on our white background there. We've been using sort of blues and purples for our theme here. So I'm going to keep it to that. I'm going to go down to button background. And let's perhaps start off with it being blue. And then when we hover over it, I want it to turn purple. And this is common to all Divi modules. If you roll over something, you'll see some little icons appear. Go up to the thing that you want to affect, in our case the button background. Go over, if there's a little arrow, just click on it. You can set a desktop color, which basically is when your mouse is not on it. Then when they put their mouse on it, you've got a hover state right here. I'm going to make it purple when we hover over it. Great, that works for me. Now rolling on down, you can choose, well, a different font if you want to for the button, but I'm going to leave mine just as it is. You can choose to show a button icon. There's plenty to choose from. Let's say send. And the default is to have it only show when you hover over it. If you want it there all the time, we can roll down. Let's give it a white color. I'm happy for it to be on the right hand side. I want it to show all the time, so only show icon on hover. I want to turn that to off. As you can see, it's added it for us there, so we've got it all the time. I am going to add a little bit of text shadow. Just helps it stand out slightly more on that button there. And I'd kind of like to have rounded corners. So if you want rounded corners, we can roll up the border radius up here. Button border radius. And let's give it a fairly high value, say 30 pixels, and that give it right nice round corners there. There we go. A little bit too cramped up between my icon and the text. I'd like to see it a bit wider. So we can do that by adding a bit of padding. If we roll down, we've got margin and padding down here. Now margin will actually move it. If you want more space on the top, give it some margin and it'll push it down. As you can see, that's dropped down. Let's make mine about 30. So I might give these forms a bit of box shadow just to offset them a little bit. And padding, this is how you make your button taller or wider. For instance, if I put 30 pixel padding on the top, you'll see it becomes a lot deeper. If you want to do the same on the bottom, just hit the chain and it comes crazy deep. I'm happy with the actual size it was there. So I'm going to add just a little bit more to the left and right. Let's try 30 left and right. See, that's added a little bit more to the left there. Hit the chain, put 30 on the right. Because we got that little icon there, we probably need to change that. So uncheck the chain because that'll make them both the same there. Let's add maybe 20 pixels. Yeah, that works for me. Obviously you make it your own. And just to offset it, I'm going to add a little bit of box shadow. Now there's a little white line there. That's going to be our border. So if I take that away, the box shadow will be on the button. So we can roll up back where we were with our border just now. Button border width. To take that away, you can either make it the same color, and you'd have to do the same for the hover effect, or just take it away. I'm going to take mine away by putting that down to 0. Fantastic. Great, well I'm happy with the way the button is working now. Let's move on down, and just to finish off, I'm going to go down to box shadow, and I'm going to give it a bit of box shadow on our fields there. That just lifts it off the page a little bit. And we're good to go. Let's save our changes here, just see how it's going to look on the front end. Hit the little purple button, save draft or publish if you're ready. And we'll exit the Visual Builder. Go on down to where we were working. And there's our little contact form. You can fill it out, put a subject in, message in, and submit it where you're ready. As you can see, when we roll over that button, it changes to purple. So there you go, guys. There's how to add the contact form to our contact section. We left off with our contact form last time. Today we're going to make this live Google map right here. And as you can see, it's a regular Google map. It's live, so you can zoom in, zoom out. You can get directions and things like that for your business. Really easy to do. There's no API key involved in this today. This is our last section. Then we'll start putting together our menu so we can hook all these up. So let's go to where we left off. Here's our production site. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. Here's our contact form. I'm going to enable the visual builder so we can build on the front end. Great, and let's zoom back down to where we want to work, which is right at the bottom. And I'm going to add a new section. So I'm going to click on the existing section, left click, hit the little blue button to add a new section. I'm going to use a regular section, could use a full width if you wanted to with this. I'm just going to use a regular section and we'll make it full width. That's a handy thing to do. Inside our section, I'm going to put a single column because I just want our map in there. I'm going to use a code module to do this. And here's our code module right here. Great. What I need to do now is get the actual code from the map. So if you go to Google and simply type in maps, then type in the address of your business. I haven't got a real address for this, so I'm going to use the Empire State Building. I've just put that in there. Zoom it in or out to where you want it. I think I'll zoom that out a little bit, perhaps something like that. When you're happy, you'll see a little share button right here. If you left click on the share button, it'll pop up this little window. We want to embed a map, so I'm going to click on embed map. And it's given us an iframe code here. You can hit the little button, just copy the HTML, or you can select and copy however you like to do it. So I've got that copied now. We can go back to our little code module. I'm simply going to paste that code in there. Control V to paste. And as you can see, if I roll this up a little bit, it's pasted that map in there. And that's a nice live Google map. But of course, we want it full width and perhaps a little bit deeper or a little bit shallower, however you want yours. So let's make this full width. At the moment, it's taking up about 50% of our row. If we look at this code, and don't get daunted by this, we just got to change a couple of things here. It's got a width of 600, so that's a width of 600 pixels there. I want it to stretch the whole of the width of the container it's in, which is the row column, which ends about here. So where it says 600 there, I'm going to select it, being careful not to cut off any of those little inverted commas there. I'm going to change that to 100%. And as you can see now, our map's filling our row there. Now, if you want it any deeper, it's 450 deep at the moment. You can make it deeper by giving it a larger value, let's say 600. Just put in 600. You don't want to put a pixel value in there or anything like that. And there it is, 600 deep. And obviously, if you want it shorter, make a smaller value. That's going to work for me. In fact, I quite liked it at 450 where it was. So I'm going to change that back to 450. And there we have it. Great. Well, what I want to do now is make it full width so it stretches from one side of the screen to the other side. And that'll be on all devices. So let's save this now. What we want to do is go into our row and make it full width. If I hover over, there's a green line. That's our row and column right there. The blue one is the section. So I'm going to click anywhere in here. We'll go up to the green tab for the row. Hit the little cog. Go to the design there. And here we've got sizing. Where it says width, I'm going to slide that all the way up to 100%. I'm going to copy that, Control C. I'm going to paste it down below in max width, Control V to paste. Or you can just type it in max width if you want to. As you can see, we've now got a full width live Google map, which is great. But I've got a little bit too much space top and bottom. I want it a little closer to here. and not so much gap there. Well, let's save our changes here. And what we need to do is get rid of padding on the section and the row. And you can either just select it, left click and pull it up like that. Same with the row if you want to, or you can just go into the row by clicking on it, going into the tab again, design. I'm going to go to spacing. I'm going to put a 0 in for both top and bottom padding there. Just hit the 0, it'll put the picks in, and we'll do the same for the bottom. And now we need to do exactly the same for the actual section, the blue tab this time. So I'm going to click anywhere in the field, go up to the blue tab, over to design again, spacing again, and padding top and bottom again. I'm going to put a 0 in, hit the chain, and that's taken it away nicely. That's a lot closer for us at the top there. Now we can actually go into the module itself, go into spacing. We can actually drag it down with a bit of negative margin if I roll that up a little bit. And I'm using the down arrow here, make it a negative value, and as you can see it's tightening it up on the bottom there. Yeah, that's going to work for me, 25 pixels, and that's sitting nicely on our bottom bar there. Let's save our changes here, and save our page changes. Save draft or publish if you're ready, and let's exit the Visual Builder. Roll on down, and there's our live Google map. You can click on it, hold your control key down, zoom in, zoom out, view a larger map, get directions and things like that. Anything that you could do with a regular Google map. So there we have it, guys. That's the last of our sections now. In our next video, I'm going to create this menu so we can hook all our sections up and link them. And we'll also do any buttons we've got up here, which we've got a few call to actions buttons up and down the page. We'll link those also. And then we'll finish off by doing the footer, and we're all done. Well, we've been putting together this one-page scrolling site here. We've done all these sections here, and we're about ready to put it all together and have it work in the menu. And what I mean by that is we're going to work on this header. We're going to create a menu that scrolls to our sections here. And we're also going to add links to any buttons that we've got on the site to take them where we want. So what I'm going to do is go down to my dashboard. Now for this site today, I'm using the regular Divi header. If I just go back up to the top, I'm using this default header for this. I'll show you how to make custom headers in another video. And to add your logo to that header, if you go down to Divi at the bottom here, theme options, on the general tab, you'll find where to put your logo right here. And you can just hit the upload button. It'll take you to your media library, or you can just drag and drop any file that you want here. There's my little logo there. I'm using one that's 338 by 100 pixels tall, but obviously use whatever works for you. When you're happy, just hit the set as logo. I'm not going to change mine, mine's already in there. While we're in this same tab here, I want to turn the back to the top button on. If I scroll down the page a little bit, you'll see a little button appear on the right hand side here, and if you hit that, it'll scroll back to the top. While we're in the general tab, if we just scroll down here, you'll find back to the top button. I'm going to go ahead and enable that. If your smooth scrolling's off, you want to enable that as well. Just make a smoother experience while we're scrolling through. Great. So I'm going to presume that you've got your back to top button and logo taken care of. Now let's actually create our menu. To do that, we need to go to each of our sections that we want to create a stop for and give it a CSS ID. I'm not going to do the first section. If you did, you could call that home. So let's enable the Visual Builder, and we'll give these some CSS IDs. Okay, once enabled, let's go to the first section that we want to stop at. Like I say, I'm not going to do the top one here because the back to the top will take us back up here. So we'll go to our About Us section, click anywhere in the section. till our little blue tab comes up for the section. I'm going to go in there, over to Advanced, CSS IDs and Classes. I'm going to use an ID. We've got to use CSS IDs, not classes for this. Let's just call it Home. And I'm going to copy that. So I've got a little list when I put my little menu together. We'll save that. We'll go down to the next section we want to link to, Services. And again, just click on the section, the little blue tab, Advanced CSS IDs and Classes. And again, we want to give this perhaps Services. And we'll roll on to our next one. Let's just call this one Team. And we've built all these in the previous videos. Go over to our Advanced, CSS IDs and Classes, ID of Team. So if you missed those and want to see how we actually built these, just have a look at the playlist below the videos. It's got all of the videos on there for you. And Projects. Advanced IDs. And you can call it what you want. It doesn't have to be projects. For instance, let's just call this one Pro. And I want to make sure that's a CSS ID, not a CSS class. So it won't work with classes. It has to be an ID. We'll go on down. Testimonials. Again, green tab, Advanced, and I'll just call this one Test. Here's the little portfolio. Let's just call this one Port. CSS ID again. And finally, we got our little contact section here. Again, blue tab, Advanced, CSS ID. Let's call it Contact. Great. Well, I've got my little list here of our little names that we've given our each section. We can save this now. We're done with this for the time being. I'm just going to save the draft. And let's go back to our desktop here. We're going to go down to Appearance. And then we're going to go down to Menus. There's my existing one. I'm going to make like we haven't got one here at all. So I'm going to create a new one. To do that, go up to Create a New Menu right here. I'm going to call it One Page. Obviously, call yours what you want. It wants to make sense to you. And I'm going to set it as the primary menu. I'm going to hit Create Menu. Okay, we now need to add some things to our menu. And to do this today, I'm going to be using custom links. So I can close up our pages up here. You've got posts and then custom links. I'm going to open up the custom link. Got my little list here. For the first one, I'm not going to have a home, but we are going to have a services. So I'm going to copy that CSS ID that we gave it. All CSS IDs have to have a hashtag in front. So you put hashtag, then the CSS ID. Then what you want it to actually say in the menu in the link text below. This is what will appear in the actual menu at the top itself. Then hit Add to the menu. And there it is right there. I'll do one more and then I'll rinse and repeat. No point you watching me do it over and over again. Our next one's Team. Has a hashtag in front of it. And then the CSS ID of Team. And we'll call it Team or our Team, whatever you want to call it. And we'll add it to the menu. Great, well I'll pause the video here and I'll just add the next few. Okay, well I've added the last one there. We've assigned it to the primary menu, which is the top bar that we were looking at with our logo and everything. So let's save the menu, a little blue button down to the right hand side. And we'll go back here. At the moment, these won't do anything because that's actually the old menu. It's going to look exactly the same when I refresh it. But if I refresh this page, we'll have our new menu on there. There we go. There's our little new menu. Let's just test it out. Services goes down to services. Team goes down to team. It looks like I've left out the about. Projects. Testimonials. Portfolio. And down to contact. I think I want to add the about because there's one more section above this. The about us. So let's go back to our menus and we'll add another one for that about section. I actually initially gave it the CSS ID of home, but I've changed that to about. So I'm going to put custom links, hashtag about, which is the new CSS ID I put in there. And let's put about us. We'll add that one to the menu. And to move it, just simply left click on it, drag it where you want it to go and drop it. If we were doing a regular menu, if you wanted it as a sub item, you can just pull it to the right a little bit to make it a sub item. And if you want sub items, just put them below and take them a little more to the right. I want this as a regular item there though. That's great. Let's save our menu. And we'll go back now. If I refresh, we should have about us in front of services there. And there it is. Let's make sure it's going to work. Fantastic. Well, we've got a couple of buttons here to work on too. We've got a learn more right there. Perhaps we'll take them down to the services with that one. And I think we've got more information. Let's take them up to the about us. Or down to the portfolio perhaps for that one. So let's enable the visual builder. And here's our first buttons here. They're on each of our slides. I've only got 2 slides. So if I click on here, we'll go into the module, dark tab for the module. There's our 2 little slides there. Let's go into the first one. And we want to take them to the contact section with these, I believe. Or actually the services section we said. So if we roll down, we're on the content tab, link. Here's the button link. So I'm going to put hashtag services if we want to take them to the services. And we'll save that one. Let's go into the next one. Perhaps on the next one, let's take it down to the contact form. So here's slide number 2. Here's the button link for slide number 2. So let's take them down to contact for that one. And if we roll down, we've got another button on our projects, I think it was. There it is, more information. We can just go into that one, just click on the button, hit the little cog on the dark tab. Here's the link for the button there, and we're going to take them down to projects for that. And my CSS ID for the projects was hashtag port. Actually not the projects, the portfolio is what I'm trying to say. We're actually on the project section. Great, so that's done. We'll save our changes now, make sure these links are going to work. I'm going to go ahead and publish this page because we'll set it as the home page when we're done in a few videos time. And let's exit the visual builder. Here we go, there's our first button. If I click on it, it should take us down to the services section. Fantastic. And the second button on the next slide should take us down to the contact, or the portfolio, was it? The contact, there we go. Great. Let's hit the old back to top button, we'll get back to the top. So that's our buttons taken care of. Let's just take the one on the projects. That should take us down to portfolio section. There we have it. Great. The only other thing to bear in mind is you can style this menu up here. If we go to the dashboard, we want to go to themes, we want to go to appearance and customize down there. That'll bring us to this page. If you go down to header and navigation, we've got our primary menu, which is up here. And here you can make the menu height, logo max height, text size, text font, bold, italicized, choose your colors, etc. The thing you want to bear in mind is sometimes when you scroll down a site, you might see that menu shrink a bit. I'm happy with the size of that, which is 70 for the menu height here. Once you start rolling, you're no longer looking at the primary menu bar. You're looking at the fixed menu, fixed navigation settings. So if you're rolling down and this is shrinking, you just need to go to fixed navigation settings and make the fixed menu height the same as your regular menu height. And that'll prevent it from shrinking up if you're having that problem there. Great, so there we go guys, we've created our header for this and we've hooked up our buttons, and our little menu is going to take us to our various sections here. So we're almost done with this site. In the next video, we're just going to add a little custom footer like we've got down here, very simple one like that. And then we'll publish this page and set it as the home page. In this video today, we're going to roll down below our Google map here. We're going to add a little custom footer. Then we're going to set this as the home page and we're done. So let's get started. To create a global footer, we need to go to the dashboard, down to Divi, and down to Theme Builder. That'll take us to this page right here. Here's the footer I've already got there. You can ignore the stuff over here. Let's just get rid of this global footer. And we'll start from scratch. Okay. Well, let's hit that add global footer. I'm going to build mine from scratch. Okay, by default it puts a little section in there, the blue tab, and then you want to decide what you want to put inside there. I'm going to have 3 columns. I'm going to keep this fairly simple today. You can make yours as elaborate as you want. My columns, I'm going to have 2 smaller ones left and right and a wider one in the middle. I'm also going to make this row full width in a minute. So let's just close this down and I'll make this row full width. To do that, go inside the little row here, the green lines. Click on the little cog on the green tab for a row. We'll go over to our design. Right there in the sizing, I'm going to make the width 100%. I'm also going to copy that, Control C, and paste it in the max width below, Control V, or you can just type it in. We've got a full width row there. Fantastic. Great. Well, I'm going to give my little section a background so we can see what's going on there. To do that, we'll just click anywhere around here. We want to go into the blue tab. Go down to background. And you've got background color, gradient, image, video, background pattern or background mask here. I'm going to combine a color with an image. And you can combine background gradients, images, patterns, and background masks if you need to. So I've been using the default blues and purples on this site. Let's just put a blue in there. As you can see, it's filled out that little section right there. And let's add an image and blend the two together perhaps. So I'm clicking on image. I'm going to click the little plus sign. I'm going to put that sort of burning ember picture in the back there. As you can see, it's in there, but the colors disappeared. If you want to blend them both, which I do, roll down from the image right there, and we've got background image blend. And there's some fantastic things you can do with this. I'm actually going to use multiply on mine, but if you select different variations, you can come up with some great things. So do play with these. I'm going to use multiply for mine today. That's going to work for me. And just for a bit of fun, let's add a background pattern. So I'll roll back up and let's roll over to background pattern. I'm going to hit the little plus icon. At the moment you can't really see them there. If I make them white you'll be able to see them. We've got polka dots. I'm going to add a little grid. There we go. And if you roll down you can make it bigger and smaller or flip it round. You can invert it so it's got the colour and the background doesn't. I'm going to make mine perhaps a little bit smaller. Custom size there. Pattern width. As you can see, it's sort of doing that as we get up. Or if you wanted a mesh one, they've got a nice mesh one here as well. Just trash this one. And there's a sort of meshy one there. And again, we can take it down a bit in size, make it look like a real sort of mesh. And take it down slightly in opacity, which is transparency. If we go back to the color up here, this little variegated slider. Take the opacity or transparency down so we can set it right in the background like that. Great, well that's kind of interesting looking, so I'll leave that just like that. Now let's start adding our elements. Well, I want my logo on the left here. I'm going to use a simple image module for that. You can use the menu module and add an image that way, but I'm going to keep mine separate. So I'm going to put an image in there. I'm going to use my lighter looking logo. There it is. That's a bit too big for me. Design wise, let's go to the design tab, and under alignment I want it to be in the middle, and sizing wise I'm going to drag it down to more of a size that I want it. Perhaps something like that. That's going to work. I'm probably going to shave some padding and margin off the top and bottom when we're finished here so it's not quite so wide. Great. Well, in the middle I'm going to have a menu. So if we click that, go down to our menu right there, and the top menu is the menu that I actually want there. As you can see, it's popped up there. It looks like it's got a white background. I really don't want a white background, so I'm going to roll down to background. Just going to trash the background with a little trash can there. And if we go to the design, menu text, I'm going to make that active link white and the regular link white too. And there it is right there. Of course, I want this aligned in the middle. If I roll down a little bit, we can middle align it there. Great. That's going to work. Underneath that, I'm going to put a dynamic copyright statement that will update each year. So I'm going to click on the module itself, hit the little dark cross to add a little new module. I'm going to use a simple text module. And right up here, if I get rid of that dummy text right there, you'll see a little disk type icon. That's for adding dynamic content. If you click on that, I want the date or the current date, but the format that I want is I really only want the year. I don't want December 16, 2022. Before it, I'm going to say copyright. I'll use the copyright symbol, which if you hold down your Alt key, it's hold down the Alt key 0169. That gives us copyright symbol. Then the name of the company, System 22. I'm going to put a gap there. Might want to spell that right. Then afterwards, I'm going to put a pipe, which is a single line up like that. And let's say all rights reserved. Whatever you want to put on yours. Now if I change that text, you'll be able to see it in a minute. It's actually up there. Date format, I just want what they call a Y, because we've got month, day and year, MJ and Y. I just want the year, so I'm going to have an uppercase Y just on its own. Great. Now design wise, I want to pull that in the middle and make it a lighter color so you can actually see it. So the text, make it white. There we go, that's a lot easier to see. And that 22, as it's dynamic, will go to 23 next year, 24 the year after, etc. like that. And I do want this in the middle of our column, so I'm going to pop that in the middle. Great. Now those are a little too far apart from me, so let's squeeze them up together a little bit more. I'm going to do that with spacing. Make sure there's no padding on the top. It's fine. Use a bit of a negative margin. If you hit the little down arrow, you'll see it start to go up. So let's take mine up by maybe 30 pixels. That might be too much. That's not too bad. Could even do a little bit more. Yeah, I think that's going to work for me. They can still get to their menu without getting over there. Fantastic. Great. Well, the only other thing I'm going to do here is just put a button on here. Like I say, you can go to town. You can put vertical menus by just adding your own links. You can make it into a mega menu if you want to. But I'm just going to put a button in here. I'm going to hit the little plus to add a button. Here's our button icon. Again, I've been using this sort of purple color. I want my button to say contact us or contact, and I'm going to have it take us to the little contact section there. So contact. The link, we want to link to a section. That section had a CSS ID of contact. A CSS ID, have a look at our last video how we hooked up all our sections with CSS IDs, and it's contact. That's great. And let's style this little button and have it a bit more in keeping with what we've got. So I'm going to go down to alignment. I want it to be in the middle of the column. That way when we look at it on a mobile tablet, it's going to be in the middle. So I'm going to go down to the button and we can custom style this button. I'm going to make the text color white. The actual size is fine. Button background, let's make it purple, as we've been using those colors. I'm going to take the border away. You see the white border up there. I'm going to take that one away. And we'll have a little hover effect perhaps. And this is common to all Divi modules. If you roll over the dark writing, you'll see some little icons appear. Go to the thing you want to affect. In our case, button background. Hit the little arrow if there is one. Desktop is when your mouse is not on it. I'm going to leave that just like that. When they hover over it, let's turn it to blue. Fantastic. Great. Well, that's all I want to do with that little button. We're almost done here. This footer's a little too deep for me. And if you hover over, here's the row with the green lines and the section behind it. I think if I just take the padding away from the section there, it's going to be just about right. So let's click above. We'll go into the blue tab for the section there. Go to design and spacing and make sure there's no padding top and bottom. I'm simply going to put a 0 in there. It'll put the pics in for you. Hit the chain, it'll do the opposite side. Yeah, that's about right for me. Might want to bring the button down slightly and the logo down slightly just so they're totally central. So let's just save what we've got here. So let's go up here. We'll go into the little logo, dark tab for the logo. And design wise, I just want to add a bit of padding to the top. So I'm going to go design, spacing. Here's the padding on the top. Let's try 15. Again, just put in a 15, it'll put in the pics. I think that's too much. I think 10 is going to work. And you can increment up and down with the little arrows to fine tune there if you want to. Actually, I think about 8 is going to do it. And let's do the similar thing for our button. With the button, go over to the design, just like we did with the other one, down to spacing. And we want to use margin for this. Let's try 8 pixels. And again, just put in the 8 and the pixels. And that's about right, maybe a bit more. That looks right to me. If you use padding, it's going to make the button taller. So if I put 15 pixels in padding in there, you can see it adds it to the actual interior of the button there. Great. Let's take that back away and we should be good to go. While we're in the button, the only other thing I didn't mention, there's a little icon there. So if we close up spacing, go back into the button, if I roll down a bit more, you'll see all these icons down here, and you can change font styles, and there's a huge amount of them here. To audition one, just roll over one. I'm going to leave mine on the default, as that's what I've been using. But they've got a huge amount of fonts here too. Now, if you want a button icon, leave that to yes. You can search for whatever it is here and put it in. I'm actually going to not have an icon at all there. If you want an icon there all the time, let's just pop one in there. You see it's got the eye icon there. If you want it to be there all the time, only show icon on hover. Turn that to off and it'll be there all the time. But I don't want an icon at all, so I'm going to turn that off. But that's another little option for you. That way we've got no icon. Great. Well, let's save our changes. We'll save the page changes. And let's X out up here. And there's our little global footer. Make sure all the changes are saved up here. Now if we go to the new home, there's the old one. I've not done it quite the same. I've got a little gradient going on the back, but it's similar. When I refresh, you'll see the new one appear there. And there it is. There's our new one with our little contact button and our System 22. When we look at it on the mobile, it should line up. Logo on top, contact button on the bottom. So let's just have a look. If I hit F12 here, I've got the Chrome Inspector. Let's bring up my devices toggle. Here we're looking at it on an iPhone 12. Let's go to the bottom. Roll down a bit more. We got our drop down menu. We got our copyright and a contact us. When I click on the contact, it should take us up to the contact section. Great. And on an iPad, it's going to do exactly the same thing. And again, do that, get up to our contact, and we got our back to the top button. So there we go. Happy with that. Let's make it our home page so that when they navigate to the URL of the site, this is all that they'll see. Now to do that, let's go to our dashboard. We're going to go down to Appearance and then down to Customize. That's going to take us here. This is actually our old site that I started off, not the one we just built, but the prototype, if you will. To change our new site to the home page, we want to go down to Home Page Settings. And you want to make sure that your page is published. If it's a draft, it's not going to show up in this list. Under Home Page, we want to select the page that we want to have as the home page. And that was called New Home. So it's just up there. You won't see any difference because it's pretty much exactly the same site. There we go. Hit the Publish. If we go back to this site and hit the logo, it'll now take us to our new home page. You won't see any difference. Just up here, it'll have the domain name just on its own. So there it is. There's our new website with our little scrolling menu there. And our live Google map on the bottom. And our little custom footer there. And of course, if we hit that little contact button, it'll take us back to the contact area right there. So I hope you've enjoyed this little series and found it useful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, ring the bell, comment, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please drop them down below. I'll do my best to answer them or make a video for you. Once again, this has been Jamie with System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.